What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram at talklouder_podcast, and also our website, talklouderpodcast.com, where you'll find links to our merch and our previous episodes. I'm Metal Dave, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, and man, we have a good one today, man. Lots of fun, lots of laughs, and it should come as no surprise because our guest is Jim Florentine, stand-up comedian. You probably know him best as a co-host on That Metal Show.
People forget that he's an actor a little bit.
Yeah, an actor, and he's put out some albums. He's got a pretty impressive discography. We talk about that. We had Don Jameson on this show once before, so now we've had 2 out of the 3 hosts of That Metal Show. Jim, of course, near and dear to my heart because he actually wore a Broken Teeth t-shirt on That Metal Show, which I thought was really cool.
With no payola.
Yeah, just did it because he loved the band. And
no prompting. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the day that happened, my phone was blowing up. People were texting me saying, hey, that guy on That Metal Show is wearing your buddy's band's t-shirt.
Here's
sure
and it was cool. My, of course, phone was blowing up as well. Here's kind of a funny story that I didn't break balls to Jim when we had him on today. Is he frantically contacted me at this is years ago. I can't even remember. Don't ask me when it was, but true story. He frantically contacted me because he was going to be in the UK, the Download Festival. Anyway. Mm-hmm. And they were having to edit together some stuff, and he was wearing a Broken Teeth shirt that he really likes. It's the old school one with just a red logo on the front.
Yeah.
And he goes, I need another one pronto. Can you ship it out to me? Blah blah blah. And I'm like, what? I hear the urgency in your voice. What the hell's wrong? And he's like, they're shooting this thing and they want me to wear the same shirt, and this thing is wet with sweat and it's gross because I wore it all day because I've been out in the sun and blah blah, and they're editing this together and they want me to wear the same thing. Do you have another one? And I'm like, fast forward, I had one in his size. I had one and it happened to be his size.
Wow.
Because it's an older design, right? It's a shirt that I don't even remember what exactly was on the back. It may have tour dates on it. I can't recall.
Nothing on the back. I have the same shirt.
No, there was something on the back. It was the handprint. Had a hand. It said Blood on the radio, and those tour dates, I think. So it definitely had something on the back. See, you don't even remember what it looked like.
Well, then I have one that predates that design.
Yeah. For sure. Oh, there's no doubt. Anyway, so I had to ship that over to him, so he could wear a Broken Teeth shirt at the Download Festival for a taping that they were doing, because they wanted him to wear the same shit because they were going to cut it together.
Yeah.
Pretty weird. I should have asked him about it, but I didn't think of it till now. Anyway, Jim, I feel blessed to call him a friend. He's always been so cool, and he likes real rock and roll. I feel blessed that he likes my music, and that I get to bump into him a few times a year doing these Monsters of Rock, the cruises, and we just recently did Monsters on the Mountain, and him and Don and Eddie were there. I didn't get to see Eddie, but I got to see Don Jameson and Jim, and it's just fantastic. The guy is flying the flag for hard rock and heavy metal for sure. And with in his own way, because who knew we talked to him a little bit about, I don't want to spill the beans, but he gets into reasons why he's a comic. Dave, you asked him some great questions today, and I think that I learned a lot about my friend Jim Florentine here on the Talk Louder podcast. I hear a story like you and Don would be on the road doing your act, and you'd listen to Eddie on the radio.
Yeah, Eddie had a show Friday nights in New York City on Q104, the classic rock station. But from like 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. every Friday, he could play whatever songs he wanted. So we'd be coming home from gigs in New Jersey, in that area, or whatever like that, and we turn on like Q104 and we hear Raven. We're like, who's playing Raven? Holy shit. And then, we knew Eddie Trunk from, being a DJ and stuff like that. Like, oh, this is Eddie's show. So every Friday we're coming home from shows, we listen to it. I'm like, man, this guy likes the same music as us. I'm surprised we don't know each other.
Yeah.
And then about a month later, we went to some show and Eddie was there. And we went up to him. We go, hey, man, we're big fans. We listen to your show. We're comics. And, he's like, oh, really? He goes, well, you guys should come up one Friday night in studio if you guys are off and just shoot the shit. We'll just talk music.
Nice.
So I said, all right, yeah, that'd be great. And then we get up there and then we just, bonded because we were all about the same age. We like the same music. And then Eddie was already working at VH1. He was doing like a regular rock show.
Okay.
Like doing a bunch of different interviews with, not metal people. So he already had it in. He goes, I'm going to pitch this show as a talk show. Just three dudes, just riffing about music and stuff and see what happens. So he had it in. And then he's like, I got these two guys. And
right on.
We did one pilot and they loved it, and then they picked us up, and that was it. But that
Talking
was
about
just
that metal show, yeah.
That metal show, yeah. So
what about prior to that? Like, how long were you like just hanging with Eddie like buds and hooking up for concerts and tailgate?
Not long.
Oh, really?
We only knew Eddie maybe 6 months to a year, possibly. Wow. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah, because we met him, and when he brought us on the radio show, we go up there like every 3 or 4 Fridays and sit in and mess around and plug our gigs and just talk music. And then he's like, I'm going to pitch this show. I have a concept. So it wasn't even that long. Me and Don knew each other, probably 15 years before we met Eddie. So me and Don were already friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Another kind of piggyback question would be which one of you guys actually named the show, that metal show?
I don't know if it was us. It might have been, I think it was VH1. We didn't want metal in the title. I think we wanted to call it something about a rock, because we knew if we had, Warrant on, people are going to go, oh, they're not metal. It really pigeonhole us, even though we did anyway. But it's like people are going to be pissed. But VH1's theory was if you have metal in the description of a show, people will tune in. So we need that. We need a metal in the description.
I'm always crybabying about Headbangers Ball because, not to pick on Warrant, but they would play Warrant or Bon Jovi or Poison on Headbangers Ball. So you'd see Slayer next to Bon Jovi, or whatever, and I would crybaby about that. So Headbanger, by definition, I mean, I love Aldo Nova, but I don't headbang to Aldo Nova, right?
Yeah, but from their perspective, compared to everything else they're airing the other 23 hours of the day, Poison and Bon Jovi is pretty rockin' stuff. So, you got to kind of keep it all in perspective from their marketing standpoint.
And the people that work at VH1 and MTV, they don't know shit about the music. They have no clue.
Right.
So you're dealing with completely clueless people. They're not metalheads. They're not even rock fans. They have no idea what's going on. They like whatever pop act is popular reality show. So you're dealing with a bunch of fucking idiots.
They're coming from they have degrees in marketing, and they were in the AV class.
And they still don't know what they're doing, even though if they had a degree in marketing. But they just knew that if metal was in the title, so I guess it was like a version of that 70s show, that metal show. We're like, all right, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
We just went on the air, so.
How difficult was that sales pitch? How many times did you have to throw that pitch before it stuck?
It was all Eddie, yeah?
Yeah, it was just once. Eddie went and met with them. They go, bring the other two guys in. Let's meet them. We sat in the conference room. We talked about what the show was going to be. And one of the heads of VH1, I forget his name, but he was a big metal guy. He was like the second in charge or whatever. He goes, listen, here's a little money. Shoot a pilot. Let's see what happens. And we basically brought Lita Ford out of retirement because Lita was living on an island with her husband at the time. She was out of music, and she came back, and she was our pilot episode. And they saw it. They go, all right, you picked up. That's it.
Wow. Well, we're glad that you helped Lita come out of retirement, because a friend of ours from San Antonio is her fucking guitar player.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Pat Kennison. You probably met him.
Yeah. Any relation to Sam?
No.
Spelled differently too, I think. So
okay, so you are one more, Dave, and then we'll, because I want to hear. This would be a double whammy. Old Bridge Militia and Raven. because I've heard stories of both, right? Birch Hill, you could throw Birch Hill nightclub, you were a DJ at between X and X. And I hear stories that, like, Raven's first tour, you like drove them around and used to be your buddies with Raven. Give us vomit on that for a moment. Give us.
Yeah, well, you know, Johnny Z from Megaforce Records had in a flea market on Friday and Saturdays, he had a record shop.
Rock and Roll
Heaven. Yeah, Rock and Roll Heaven. So every Friday night, me and my friends would get paid, and we'd go down there and we'd just hang out, and he'd play, you know, the new Raven record. They had Metallica, No Life to Leather on cassette. I remember going, I'm going to sign this band. This band's going to be huge. You know, he'd play us, like, remember that band Trance? He'd play us that. We'd just be sitting in there like, oh, this is unbelievable. More, remember that band More?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so Rose Tattoo, all the shit. So we're like, oh man, well, we'll take this out, we'll take this. And then he's like, I'm bringing this band Raven over, and you know, they're gonna do some shows here in America. And they were hanging out in Old Bridge. I grew up in Old Bridge, I lived there. And at one point he's like, hey man, you know, can you guys take these guys out? I think they were staying at Johnny Z's house. I know Metallica was. And I'm like, yeah. So I remember picking them up in my mom's car, and we driving around, took them to Burger King, all this stuff. And I had a college radio show at the time, and I did an interview with John Gallagher. You know, my first interview ever. I was so nervous.
Wow.
I was, you know, I knew Raven with the Rock Until You Drop. I was living in Florida at the time. I went to an import record store, and I saw that cover to Rock Until You Drop, and I didn't know anything about them. I go, that has to be good. Look at that cover. I didn't even know what they sounded like, and it was like $15.99 for the album as an import. I'm like, I got to get it. I was making like $3.35 an hour. I go, I know this is going to be good, and I was a fan. You know, so they came around when Wiped Out. I think around that era they came to and hung, and then I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter to John Gallagher afterwards and sent it to Neat Records. They were on Neat Records. Say, thank you. You were my first interview. He wrote me a letter back. I still have it in my scrapbook.
Awesome.
And I always remember that, man. I'm still friends with those guys till today. You know,
they're playing here. They're playing here in Austin, not next weekend, but weekend after. So.
Oh yeah, you gonna go?
Yeah. Oh fuck yeah.
Yeah. So
we had him on the show too.
Yeah, we had John on here. I absolutely love Raven, and it's no secret. And I've heard these stories from you in passing, and I just wanted you to share a little bit.
It was a great scene, man, because, you know, he brought Metallica, you know, Raven, Riot, you know, all these bands, Anvil, you know, he brought them all to like this little town in New Jersey, Old Bridge, New Jersey, where I lived, and we're all metalheads, and they would just be hanging around town doing these little bars. Metallica did a skating rink at one point. It was
Metallica and a skating, So
I've heard a roller rink. It was a roller skating rink.
This is all legendary stories that I've heard through fanzines and word of mouth and from, you know, John and from Metallica guys and just for the record, this is all pre-1983.
Mustaine was still in the band when they were here in Old Bridge. I took them guys to the mall, and Mustaine was all drunk, and they were like, hey, just go walk with him, you know, and it's like, you know, and I'm like, all right, fine, and they left the other three behind because they were staying at Johnny Z's house, and he just had like a regular house, and he just had a baby, and all four guys Metallica are sleeping on his floor in that shower, and they drank like his champagne, like from his wedding night that was like 7 years old. They drank that and like, get these guys out, they stink, we got a newborn here, just get them out of the house, take them somewhere. So
that's awesome, man.
So my point was pre-Kill 'Em All. This is, you know, Raven had like 2.5 records out. What, Rock and Drop, Wiped Out, and Crash Bang Wallop or some shit. Yeah. And it was pre All for One. It was, you know, such an early time and still very underground. And what a like mastermind, Johnny Z, and your whole Jersey scene. I wore this shirt. Do you know anything about these books that are coming out?
No.
There's it's called Jersey Metal. That's a trifecta. There's going to be 3 different books come out about the Jersey metal scene, and surely all that shit's going to be in there. I can't believe you don't know about it.
No, I don't know that.
Frank White and Alan Tecchio are putting that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't interview you for it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I need to get on their ass.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, it sounds like you know you would have been a good, you know, guy to talk to about that shit.
In your days, your early days in Jersey, did you ever you got any early Misfit stories, or was Lodi pretty far away from you? I don't know.
Yeah, I never was really into the Misfits. They weren't really on my radar at the time. Yeah, Lodi was pretty far. We kind of stayed, like the Birch Hill Rock Club was right around the corner. Sometimes we'd go to L'Amour's in Brooklyn to see shows too. If they were, we'd see Motorhead back-to-back nights. But they weren't really on my radar at that time, the Misfits.
Yeah. We started talking about that metal show, and I was going to get to it later, but since we were on the topic, I wanted to ask which guest on that metal show was the most surprising to you? Like, did anyone come on the show and you really didn't care one way or another about the person, and then you ended up being really interested by them or impressed by them, or did the opposite ever happen? You were stoked about having someone on and they were kind of a letdown.
Well, sometimes, yeah. I mean, some of those guys, Lemmy was on probably 3 or 4 times. Those British guys, they're fucking cranky until they got some booze in them. So Lemmy, we always make sure if we're doing 2 shows in one day, put Lemmy on the second show so he's not cranky. So sometimes, Lemmy Lemmy was amazing. He was totally nice to us, would come on, but he wasn't a great interview because sometimes he would just give 1-word answers. So it was like pulling teeth with him until, it just depended what you ask him, what kind of mood he was in. Not that he was a dick. He never was. It was just like, he needed his Jack Daniels, it's like, okay, no problem. So, no, I don't, Eddie knew all these guys, and I always treated it like I was just happy they were on. And, even I wasn't a big fan of maybe, I don't know, say the band Warren or something like that. I still did all the research. I knew some of the stuff, obviously, and just, treated them with respect. And everybody else, Eddie had such a relationship with all these guys, so they weren't coming on as dicks.
Right.
And plus they're older, and they, that was the Tonight Show for those guys if they had a new product to push. So they definitely they weren't in their 20s anymore where they had an attitude. So yeah, everyone was grounded and down to earth and just be, happy to be on. Yeah.
Who's the most fun you had with off camera as guest, that metal show guest?
Probably Lemmy. I remember me and Don Jameson walking by his dressing room after he just recorded something. I'm like, oh man, he's in there. But and the door was open and he's like, hey boys, you guys want to have a drink with me? I'm like, yeah. So we sat and fucking drank Jack Daniels with him for like 2 hours. It's great.
Everyone has, anyone that's had any interaction with Lemmy, the stories are always amazing. So yeah.
Great guy.
What about Eddie Trunk? What's the biggest argument you ever got into with Eddie Trunk?
I've never gotten in an argument with Eddie.
Really?
Never. Yeah. I mean, Don, I don't even think I ever got in that argument with Don. We just, no, it just, the thing that we'd annoyed Eddie with is our farting. We'd constantly be farting in the green room, in the dressing room, even on set, and it would just drive him nuts. Like I'd always have one in the chamber, like right when we're ready to go, they go 3, 2, 1. I welcome to that metal show, the opening of the show. Yeah. Right when and Eddie would start at 3, 2, 1, I'd let a fart out right then. And he would just start laughing. I'm like, come on, Eddie, will you stop? It's messing everything up. Now we got to do it again. So he was more annoyed by that. He's like, you guys are just so childish.
One in the chamber. I love that.
Yeah, always have one in the chamber. You never know.
So how did you and Jason meet? Because one time you were wearing a Broken Teeth shirt on that metal show, and I started getting texts and emails from all my friends going, hey, that guy on the metal show is wearing your buddy's band T-shirt or whatever. I got all kinds of text messages, and sure enough, I'm watching, and yeah, you're wearing the Broken Teeth shirt, which I thought was awesome. But how did you and Jason meet in the first place?
I was on I was on the internet one night and I was listening to some AC/DC stuff or something. Maybe I was looking something up and it said, if you like AC/DC, try this band. And I just wound up on the Broken Teeth website or whatever. I'm like, what the fuck? This is amazing. And I'm trying to look it up. I'm like, who's in this band? I never heard of him. And then I saw it was Jason. I'm like, holy shit, I know Jason. This must be a side project. And then like a month later, I was in Austin. I ordered a bunch of shirts, the albums. Jason said he sent it to me. He didn't even know who I was at that point. And when I went to Austin, like a month later, I was doing comedy. I went on the local morning show and I kept talking about Broken Teeth. I'm like, I might get back to him. Hopefully, usually in the town, I'll talk about a band and someone was talking about it on the radio. And somehow Jason heard it and we went up meeting up that weekend and we became friends.
Wow, that's awesome. I love the fact that you were wearing that shirt on the show. That was
Oh yeah, I
huge.
always wanted to give bands like some up and coming bands pop. People go see that. Oh, Broken Teeth. I got to see what that. Check that band out. If we couldn't have them on, everything had to go through VH1 if they could approve the guests or whatever. But if we couldn't have them on, at least wear the band T-shirt or feature their album and like a little segment and stuff. So.
Yeah. Did anyone ever have to approve the band T-shirts you're wearing? Was there a wardrobe? No wardrobe police.
They told us, like, you guys dress like slobs. I go, this is the way I dress. Like, you're on TV, or I don't care. This is what I dress. I wear this to my wedding.
They actually said you guys dress like slobs.
Yeah,
They told you?
They go, yeah, you guys dress like slobs. I guess.
I think that
they would give us like $500 each season for wardrobe, and I just go buy concert shirts.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Well, from an audience perspective, I think it lends you some authenticity. Not that you needed any, because that's who you are to begin with. But nobody wants to turn on that metal show and want to see a guy wearing an Izod polo.
Well, I know that's what they probably thought. Like, you guys should dress nice, like that. I'm comfortable in this. So they were fine. They didn't really, but I remember them telling us, you guys dress like slobs. I thought that was funny. On the pilot episode, I wore an Accept shirt. That was fucking great.
Well, you're flying the flag for a lot of people, and they need to realize that you're a voice for the cause.
What happened a couple of times? I almost got in trouble. It was weird because I guess I got some shirts, probably drunk in a parking lot after the show. The bootleg shirts.
Yeah.
About $5 he's selling them at the last minute or whatever, and I'm like, all right, I'll take it. Whatever. I bought one inside, but this one's pretty cool. It's another shirt, like an Anthrax shirt I don't have, even though it's a bootleg. And I didn't realize later on, there was at least 2 bands that I wore a bootleg shirt on the show, and the band saw it, like, hey, Teddy, ask Jim where he got that shirt. We never heard of it. I'm like, oh shit, I got in the parking lot. They didn't get a cut from him. I'm like, I don't know, a fan sent it to me. That's what I would say. A fan sent it to me. I didn't know. I don't know where it came from. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh shit, that must have been a bootleg that I bought for $5 in the parking lot that they didn't get a cut from.
Yeah, if you buy a shirt for $5, it's not legit.
Yeah, maybe 10, but yeah, when they're selling them, they got them, in their pant leg, you got a medium. Yeah, I got a medium. Yeah, how much? Looking around. Yeah,
right.
Once in a while, I'll buy them if I bought one inside because it's an extra shirt.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. We had when we had Don Jameson on the show, I asked him if he ever ever got permission to use like the Denim and Leather album cover for the cover of his comedy album, and he was like, "Oh." Am I supposed to get permission? I was like, next subject. So he was a little worried, not too worried, but it was.
No, I think he did get permission because he's friends with Biff.
Yeah, and then he went on to tell us, that he.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, he mentioned talking it over with Biff at some point, and Biff was like, "Yeah, dude, whatever."
I remember we have these prank call albums on me and Don Jameson called Terrorizing Telemarketers.
Yes.
And they're just volume 1, 2, 3. So of course, volume 4 had to be a knockoff of the volume 4 cover. I'm on the front with the Ozzy with the peace signs holding a phone, and Don's on the other end, just like, but it's Terrorizing Telemarketers volume 4. And I remember I'm like, we might get sued for this. Who knows? And I remember at that point I was friends with Jack Osborne, Ozzy's son.
Yeah.
And he was all into my prank calls. And I remember I had a copy of it. He's like, dude, bring it over. I want to hear the new stuff. I gave it to him in like a paper sleeve. He's like, there's no jewel case? I go, this is the only one I have right now because I didn't want him to see the cover. In case, his mom saw it, like, what the fuck, you can't put this thing out. So I didn't ask permission, but
if anyone could have had your ass, it would have been Jack's mom.
Yeah. Right. So I was just like, I better not. I'm not going to leave this cover. He might have it on the counter. Sharon comes over. It's like, what the hell is this? I remember I gave him in a paper sleeve. Like, yeah, sorry, I don't have any jewel cases right now. It's the only one copy I got on me.
Did he finally see it? Did they finally see it?
He probably did, but they didn't say anything. Sharon actually likes me, so she probably wouldn't have said anything.
You're in an elite company then.
That's good.
So speaking of terrorizing telemarketers, I'm one of these guys that I don't answer the phone ever, and I sure don't answer my door. So what I wanted to ask you is, for those of us, our listeners who are out there who pick up the phone or answer the door, and it's a salesperson. What's your best piece of advice for a telemarketer on the phone? How do you shut that down or drag it out until you drive them crazy? What's your best tactic?
Yeah, I mean, I drive it out. I try to keep them on as long as possible, because just to torture them, because I knew early on, like, as long as you don't curse or tell them you don't want the product, they have a supervisor listening in, so they're not going to just hang up. So I always just pretend like, hey man, I'm just trying to get the information, whatever way I'm screwing them around. So I'm just, I think they're just happy. They're happy to get somebody actually on the phone. They probably had 10 people in a row going, don't ever call here again. Put me on the do not call list. Stop bothering me. And then all of a sudden they get me and like, oh wait, this guy, I might have a sale here, even though this is weird, whatever's going on.
How long have you dragged someone out?
An hour. It never made the album, but easily. One woman's like, "Sir, it's an hour. I have to get off the phone. We're legally at our company." I go, "I just got a few more questions. I think I could have kept like an hour and 3, and she had to cut the call."
Oh my God! How do you even keep going for that length of time?
Because I have nothing going on during the day. I have a lot of free time.
There's an art to that. That's why you make albums.
There is an art to it.
I could hear you going, "Hey, so if let's say that I send you the check, do I get like a mug and a T-shirt or something?"
Well,
they're always wanting your credit card information. Like, some person that just called me. I'm gonna hold on. Let me get my credit card. I'll give you all my information on the phone. I'm sure you're legit.
Right. Yeah. So what's the best piece of advice you have for shutting down someone who knocks on your door?
I don't get that anymore. You guys still get that in Texas?
Yeah, we get it. I just don't answer.
Yeah, I don't know. No one knocks on. I haven't had anyone knock on my door trying to sell me shit, which is Texas. I'm surprised they don't get shot. You guys all get your fucking guns. No, I don't have that with the guy. I wouldn't open my door either, but I've never had that at my house for 11 years. I've been living here where salesmen knocked.
Wow.
Sometimes I get like high school students selling coupons for, they're having like a bake sale or something.
Okay, right.
Girl Scout cookies, whatever,
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen.
I just refuse to answer, and some people just think that's so strange, and I think the opposite. I think it's strange that you do open the door or pick up the phone and carry on a conversation with someone who's trying to sell you something. I just spare myself the misery and ignore it.
Well, I only do it because I put albums out.
Yeah.
That's why I have a motive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the album's been out and it's been done for like 2 months. I just disconnected my home phone because I don't want to deal with it. I'm done. I'm done for now. It's almost like an hour. I'm out of the studio. I don't want to even think about going back in the studio. So I just unplugged the phone. So because it would ring constantly, I hooked up my home phone. I would do it from there, or the recorder hooked up to the phone. But when I'm not doing it, it's out of sight, out of mind. I want nothing to do with it. I'm not, so until I start doing another one, who knows when? If I do another one, that phone's off the hook. It's unplugged.
Yeah, probably a smart move. I was looking at your discography, and it's pretty impressive. I don't know if people realize how many albums and books and voiceovers you've done. I mean, it's quite the spread. You're kind of all over the place. How did you get hooked on comedy initially? Who was your hero, or what was the moment? Who did you see on TV or on stage or in the movies and said, I want to do that for a living?
I always wanted to be in a band. All my friends were in bands, and I was a lefty, so nobody could teach me guitar. Like, if you're a righty, and I couldn't do anything righty, I'm like, I can't. Like, well, I can't teach you. I went for singing lessons. I went one time, and the woman's like, listen, at the end, she goes, listen, you want me to be honest? She goes, you don't have it. You just don't have an ear for music. She goes, you could keep coming. I could take your money, or, maybe at some point you might develop it, but I just don't see it. I'm like, I appreciate that. And I wasn't bummed out. I just, okay, at least I knew that I didn't have it. And then all my friends were playing in bands, these local bands. I'm like, I want to get on stage somehow. And I was always attracted to stand-up comedy. I always wanted to be my own boss. And I was like, I'm going to do stand-up, And then when I went up one time, I'm like, man, this is what I want to do. Just that freedom of just being up there and performing and stuff like that. It wasn't necessarily a band, but then I realized, I don't have to worry about getting along with 4 other members in the band. It's just me. I have to deal with myself. Yeah. So, but then again, if things go wrong, you can only blame me. I can't blame the bass player.
Right.
Off that night.
How old were you?
25 is when I first went on stage for the first time. I wasn't sure what I was doing. I was DJing. I was DJing at the Birch Hill Rock Club. I had my own DJ business. But then I'm like, God, I got to do something. I got to make a move here. And then, I went on stage and that was it.
So your DJ business, was that like weddings and shit?
I did weddings. I was the metal guy on Friday nights. you know, and then Mondays I DJ. There was a strip club during the day. I DJ'd that, you know, and then I was on a local radio show just playing like shitty music, whatever, but it was a radio. And then I just like, and then they were telling me what songs to play. Like at night, the radio show the radio station I was on, it was a small station. After 6 o'clock, you could play whatever you want. So they gave me a 3-hour shift. So I brought in all my metal records, and I was doing like a 3-hour metal show once a week.
Oh, that's cool.
Me and my two buddies. It was fucking great. And then they gave me the morning show there. They go, once you're on the mornings, you got a good voice. And I was only like 22 at the time. And then I had to start playing like adult contemporary rock. I was playing like Elton John. I'm like, this stinks. Phil Collins solo stuff. I'm like, this is terrible. You know, I remember one time I snuck in like I think Aerosmith Dream On, and the program director calls, you can't play that. I go, it's a ballad. You can't play that. It doesn't fit our format. I'm like, fuck this. That's why I was like, I got to get up on stage. I ain't dealing with this shit. I don't want to play Susu Studio by Phil Collins.
No, I mean, you know, I could start an argument here about adult contemporary music, which I actually really, really like. But
like who?
I like Elton John a lot.
No, Elton John, absolutely. I didn't mean to throw him in the mix, but Elton John's a legend.
Yeah, I just want to bring up the fact that that even though our guests are mainly metalheads, it's like understandably you're a young DJ with a position on the morning show, having to play something that you're not exactly excited about, period, sounds like fucking hell.
No, and even when I did weddings, you know, I probably got paid like $500 for a 4-hour wedding, and then they would give you a tip. So it was pretty good money back in the day.
Sure.
And I hated playing those songs. I didn't want to play that stuff because I was a metalhead. I remember guys coming up, hey, can you play, I remember that song was really popular, Buster Poindexter, Hot, Hot, Hot.
Yeah.
No, I go, that song stinks. I'm not playing that. Like, come on, it's a good, I'm not playing it. I would argue with people. Like, I'm not playing it. I remember I put Metallica on one time when they were eating. They were fucking mad.
Wow.
I put Orion on. It's a fucking, you know, there's no words.
An instrumental, yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least Buster Poindexter, at least you were playing a New York Doll.
Yeah, exactly. But that Hot, Hot, Hot was terrible.
No,
it's just like,
it was
all over the radio and all that. I'm like, ugh. And they wanted
but
B-52's Love Shack. I'm like, that song stinks.
Well,
no.
what did you think about when Dee Dee Ramone went rap?
I don't remember that.
Oh, you're lucky.
I must have blocked it out. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good to go then.
I have it on vinyl over here.
Yeah, of course you do.
It's it hasn't been played in a long, long time.
Ooh, it's fucking terrible. I played it for. I had a student the other day at school. They were a big Ramones fan. I go, you remember when Dee Dee went rap? And they went, oh, what?
Yeah.
And I played it for them, and they were like, I had to dial 911 because they just didn't understand it at all. Anyway.
I was a DJ in college on the college radio station, and my shtick was I went to school specifically for journalism because I wanted to, kind of like you, I wanted to be in a band, and I really never pursued it and had no musical talent, or at least I didn't develop it. I got frustrated and I quit. But one day, as a fan, I'm constantly reading all the music magazines and all that stuff. And I realized one day somebody's getting paid to interview these bands and take these photos, et cetera, that comprise a magazine. And I thought, there's my in. Maybe I can get a degree in journalism and work for a magazine as a writer. So then I went to college to get my degree in journalism. And while I was in college, it's all under the umbrella of communications. So there was a semester there where I ventured into the radio station and had a shift on the air. And for me, I was the token metalhead punk rocker on the college radio station. So none of the other DJs cared anything about the music that I wanted to play. So when all the new albums, the promo albums started coming in, I was the guy that would introduce them on the air because I was the only guy that cared about Iggy Pop and the Ramones. And then I thought for a moment there that maybe I would go into radio. But then it occurred to me, as someone who used to do manual labor all day long listening to the radio, back before, when DJs had to follow a playlist, I realized, you know what? These poor saps have to listen through the same 10 songs all day, every day. There is no freedom of expression. There is no introducing your favorite bands to the listeners. I don't think this is for me. So did you have some of that same experience?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to play the songs that I liked, that I wanted to play, because I think it spoiled me when I had that night shift from, like 7 to 10, 3 hours, play my own stuff.
Yeah.
And my friends on, then all of a sudden it became corporate. And I'm like,
Right.
I don't want to, and, even, when I did the weddings too, I was like, I don't want to play this stuff. I know it was good money. I'm like, all right, I just got to deal with it, so. But I think the morning show playing that kind of music really frustrated me, because it was the same station where at night it could be the metal show. So, and that's what gear does. Like, I got to get out of this. I'm going to get into stand up. I got to find a different way to get up on stage.
Seems to me that, like, if you have your 3-hour metal show, you and your buddies hanging out playing anything you want. Thank God it was metal. And then, a few hours later, you go home, shower, get up in the morning, and you're playing, Journey or Alan Parsons Project or whatever. You are the same voice that was playing, Behemoth and Slayer, just to use,
Yeah, no, they once I got the morning show, they didn't have me do that metal show anymore at night.
They cut it.
Yeah,
they cut it. Wow. Well, if you had any kind of following from your stint as as playing, as a free for all, a metal show, if they recognized your name, your voice on this morning show, they're like, wait, isn't that the metal guy? What the fuck? There was probably some kind of like confusion going on. If you would have garnered any foothold at all. I wonder do you feel like you had a good thing going with that, where you had a lot of call-ins and
we had a good thing going with the metal show, but then I'm like, I got offered the morning show at like 22, 23 years old. So like, that's always the goal. That's the prime spot.
Right.
You do the morning show, but then I realized, you
had to think about the paycheck a little bit. You got to eat and pay rent.
Yeah, and our metal show was called the Below the Belt Rock Show. I remember it. It was like,
that's good.
And we advertised it. The only 3 hours on the radio where you'll never hear a Bruce Springsteen song.
Wow.
Springsteen was huge in Jersey. It was all about, and I hated him. I'm like, all right, what brings Springsteen? He stinks. Dancing in the Dark. Like Glory Days. It's just silly.
Brutal.
So it was always, to me, he's still overrated. But so we advertised like there's only 3 hours where you'll never hear a Springsteen song.
Wow. I bet
That's appealing.
local Jersey natives were like, fuck a Jim Florentine. Fuck
Probably,
you,
but
Jim.
you know what? Were they really tuning in to listen to Y&T Black Tiger? You know what I mean? So
no, they wouldn't understand it. You're right.
They wouldn't understand it. So we were playing to our audience, and we hated them. We all hated them. Like,
you're drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah. It's like enough with him.
I grew up in San Antonio, and people that listen to the podcast have heard me say this a million times. There was a great DJ named Joe Anthony. They called him the Godfather, and he used to play. This is back when DJs could kind of steer their own ship. So he introduced me to Accept and Helix and Killer Dwarfs and all this stuff that otherwise wouldn't have crossed my ears. And so he was my inspiration for maybe going into DJing. And then I got a little taste of it in college, and I still had the freedom to play the punk rock and the metal. But then as a career, which is what you're saying, you start looking at trying to go out and get jobs and earn a paycheck and appeal to the masses. And your dream is to get the drive time shift. You ain't playing Killer Dwarves on the drive time shift. And in fact, you're playing the same 10 songs every day over and over and over. So that's what kind of turned me off.
No, and it was the same. It's the same thing with my stand-up comedy. Like, I wasn't going to be like this clean, David Letterman Tonight Show comic. With your 4 minutes of like clever, silly jokes. So it's like I always wanted to be edgy, dirty, raunchy. Like, that was my style. I'm like, I'm gonna have to find a different avenue to make it instead of going on a Tonight Show. But that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't even going to kowtow to that and write my act towards a TV act so I can get on TV, because that's not who I am.
Right.
Yeah. I got to say this, and this is something I hadn't really ever thought about, but, not to call it a dynamic duo with you and Don, but you guys' show, I mean, the goal or your description of your set is very similar to the description probably of his set. Some of the same, ideas and name drops and checks and everything like that. But your shows are not the same. Your delivery is not the same. You guys probably have been working off of each other for years and years and years now. That's no secret. But in my opinion, your sets are different. You guys have a different way to say it.
Yeah, I'm more dry and sarcastic.
Yeah. Your setups are more like questionnaire.
Yeah.
And his are narrative.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And he talks more music in his act, like more music related. I don't talk too much music in my act because I have a diverse audience. I have some That Metal Show fans. I got fans from Comedy Central. I got Howard Stern fans. I got regular comedy. So it's, I can't talk about Iron Maiden and Eddie because 4 people in the crowd might get it. So right. I don't talk about that when I'm on stage. I just see them. Even if I bring it, like in New York City, I was just there last night. If I talk about AC/DC in front of these 25-year-old kids, I'm like, I think I know that band. It's not my dad like them. It was not one song.
Yeah.
So they're completely out of that's even AC/DC. So I just stay away from that.
Yeah, their faces go blank, and you have to aim for the bullseye.
Yeah, like you would think, okay, I can't say I can't say Motorhead, but I could say AC/DC, and they still just stare at you. So
as sad as that is,
yeah.
You mentioned Sam Kinison early in this episode, and I read his book, and one of the things there was many things I liked about the book, but one of the points that stuck with me all these years is he did a very good job of articulating the loneliness and the solitary, nature of comedy as a career. And it's like alluding to what you said earlier about, if you were in a band and everything went south, you could blame the bass player. But you're out there on your own. You're basically naked on stage. You're up and coming, so you don't have a name yet. You don't have a reputation yet. How strange and lonely and weird is that existence going from city to city as basically a solo performer trying to crack jokes for a living?
No, I was just talking to someone last night. My son, who's 12, he started doing stand-up when he was like 6. So he'd come on my show. We'd do a few jokes on stage. And he was getting really good at it. He would perform in front of 500 people at 7 years old, fearless.
Wow.
And he was good. And I'm like, man, he's got a future. And then he's not doing it anymore. He's 12 now. He's playing basketball. He's hanging out with his friends. And I tell people, and he's also great at music, too. He could play Mr. Crowley on the keyboards, the whole song.
Wow.
Like he was great with that shit too. And then he's steered away from that too. And I said, I don't want to push either lifestyle on him. I go, do I really want him to be at a Holiday Inn off some highway in the middle of friggin' Michigan from Thursday, Friday, Saturday doing a comedy club, isolated by himself, doesn't know anyone, while all of his friends are having a great time going to parties and hanging out? You miss a lot of stuff. It's really lonely. Like you don't know anyone in town. You just kind of hang, you wait for the show, you're bored, you walk to the fucking Subway sandwich shop to get some food, and then you just wait for the show that night. So I'm like, I don't know if I want him to have that lifestyle. So that's why I don't push it on him. But yeah, it is tough. But then also it's like, I don't know. Once you start making a good living telling jokes, you almost can't believe it. Like, is this really? I'm just being myself, and I can make really good money. This is fucking awesome. So I look at it that way. When I'm not working in a factory, I'm not working a 9-to-5 job. Like I never, when I saw that movie Office Space, which is based out of like Austin, right?
Yeah.
When I saw that, I knew that movie. I saw it in the theater. So I was a big Mike Judge fan. I go, that I will never do that. So I need to focus on comedy. It's inspired me, and it's still to this day of sitting in a cubicle would drive me insane. So I always said I got to work hard, and just keep doing this.
Mike Judge is a realist, man. He's letting you have it.
He nailed that, man. Did he nailed that movie?
Yeah, Idiocracy. That
one too. Yeah.
I think that he's just a realist. He's just telling everybody there. Well, this is you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you said that you make a good living now, and of course people recognize you and know you, but you've obviously paid your dues, and that's kind of what I was talking about, the lonely night at the Holiday Inn on the Access Road.
Look, just like a band, there was always girls to hold you over. And, when I was making like $250 a week, like 2-3 years in the comedy, to me, I already made it. I'm like, I'm getting paid. I was living at home. I didn't have any bills. I go, I made it. I'm all right. I always thought like a rock band playing clubs and just trying to build a following through the clubs and maybe get the theaters. That's the way I always looked at it. I always had merchandise afterwards, get my name out there, meet people after the show. I treated it like I was like a club rock band and just trying to build that audience. And just that I was making a living and I didn't have to work, you know, a different job. And I was living at home. My parents let me live rent free as I started building my career. I'm like, I already made it.
Yeah.
At that point.
There's probably a lot of like rock fans that don't realize that a comics life is very much like a young band, you know, booking their own shows, getting in a bar, playing bars every night. When you're in the middle of nowhere, like you guys have said here, and what we're talking about here, at least in a band, you have each other. You guys can have some beers together. You can, you know, spend a few bucks and go to the Taco Bell so you have gas to get to the next fucking gig the next day. Hard times, but you're smiling because similar, like, what? I'm getting paid to be myself and tell jokes, and what? People are coming to the show, and sure, I'll play a cover or two, but they're buying my music too. This is fucking great, you know. So, in a sense, in your head, you feel like, you know, at age 19 or whatever, I'm happy that I could do this for the rest of my life. Mom, I'm dropping out of school, kind of shit like that, you know. And then you realize later on, it's like, oh shit, I need an agent. When did that happen? When did it get to a certain point where you realize maybe I need a booking agent?
Well, you're always looking for one right away. You think you're great when you first start. You're like, oh, man, I should be on HBO.
And you're not
like
really
months.
Great. You're just
I stunk. I was terrible.
Yeah, you're just like, lucky. I'm lucky. This is fucking awesome, you know.
It's like a band, like, you know, their first song they ever write when they're like 17, they think it's going to be a hit. I'm like, I go, you know, and they're pushing it, the first song. I'm like, don't push that because you're going to burn bridges because wherever connection you think you might have, if they hear that, they don't want to hear anything from you for a while because it's not that good. So they're not going to like, what do I got? So,
unless you're Steven Tyler, and you're Steven Tyler, you're 17, you write Dream On. I think he wrote Dream On when he was 17 So there's people that break the fucking
There are some exceptions, absolutely. But most of the time it's bad.
Yeah.
So, but no, about 3-4 years in, I probably pretty much got my first agent. You know, it's funny because I got my agent basically through Don. So Don this is mid-90s. Don was working at MTV at the time. He was booking a comedy show, MTV half-hour comedy hour. And I was doing comedy a few years. I went to like a Christmas party at for this comedy club. And this comedian that knew Don, he was on the show a bunch of times. I was friends with him. He goes, hey, I'm going to introduce you to this guy that works at MTV. I think he's going to like you. I had long hair back then. Don had long hair. And he went up to him. He goes, hey, Don. He goes, I think you're going to like this guy. He's from New Jersey. He likes heavy metal and hanging out in strip clubs. And Don's like, really? We sat and talked for like 2 hours. And Don's like, hey, man, I want to come see you do stand-up. I booked the MTV comedy show. I'm like, yeah, I love that. He goes, all right, I'm going to come. I'll set it up at the club. I'll see you, you know, in a few nights. And he went out and saw my set, and he booked me on there. And then I got a college agent from there and an agent and everything else. It was from that being on MTV and doing well and meeting Don. And then Don, you know, he's a pretty big executive at MTV at the time.
Wow.
We talk on the phone. He's like, hey, man, I'm thinking about doing stand-up. I might want to come to one of your gigs if that's cool. Meanwhile, I'm doing like these shitty still rock clubs and stuff, these bars. I'm like, I don't want this big MTV executive. I want him to think that I'm doing really well. And I'm playing these like nice venues. He's like, I'll come to your show. I go, nah, man, this one. And he's like, I don't care, man. I just want to go check it out, see the scene. And I took him to some shit gig and and he's like, man, I could definitely do this. You know, watching and stuff like that. And we just became friends from there. And then he left MTV and started doing stand-up full time.
Wow.
So he's the one who actually got me. Once I got that MTV thing, I was on TV. I had a great tape, and all the colleges started wanting booking me, and I got an agent, and they started booking me. So that's how it started. And Don
I never knew that part of your story. I never knew that. Or Don.
Yeah, because I didn't know Don growing up. You know, he grew up in Jersey, probably 30 minutes from me, but I never crossed past him. I didn't know who he was.
Wow, you guys like turned around and basically inspired each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just want to point out that Steven Tyler may have written Dream On when he was a kid, but it wasn't a hit until about 5 years later. So
you're right.
He paid his dues.
You're right.
Yeah. Jim, tell me what do you remember about your first crank call as a kid? obviously you've had plenty of practice in order to do these records. So do you remember ordering a pizza to your neighbor's house or calling the fire truck to the local school or anything like that?
Yeah, well, there was two that, this one girl, I remember in 7th grade, me and my friend Tony, there was this girl that had these huge tits in 7th grade. They were so big, and we were like, she was so hot. And we found her number in the phone book, and we called it up, and she's like, hello. We knew it was her. Her name was Donna. I'm like, yeah, this is a national survey. We just want to call in to see what your bra size is. And she's like, is this Jim?
Oh, shit.
And she hung up on me, and she knew right away. I probably sounded like this in 7th grade, you know. That was like my first prank call. And then there was another one where we were just pranking people, and if we got a woman on the phone, we just yell on the phone, how big are your tits? And they would hang up. I'm just stupid, you know. So I remember I was at my friend Tony's house, and he was upstairs. I was downstairs, and I was doing the dialing, and then he would pick the phone up. So I go, all right, we're taking turns doing that. Thought it was funny. And I look at his refrigerator, and there's a piece of paper that says mom's office number. She worked as a dental assistant. So I dialed the number. I go, okay, it's your turn. You yell it. So she goes, dental, whatever. And he goes, how big are your tits? And she's like, is this Tony? What do you call me at work for? What are you saying? And he hung up, and he wound up chasing me out of the house all the way, bringing down the road. He was so pissed. So I remember those early on. He asked his mom how big his tits were.
And this launched a career. Amazing.
And launched a career. I think I'm onto something.
You can't do that nowadays with all the caller ID and the tracing and all.
If you hit star 67, it comes up private or out of area. If you hit star 67, then dial a number, your number doesn't come up.
Yeah, Dave, there's ways around that.
Yeah, there's ways around it.
I'm the guy that never answers the phone, so I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
So I read somewhere that you opened for both Slayer and Metallica. Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell me about those experiences. How did you get those gigs, and then what was it like going on in front of those audiences?
Well, Metallica was they did this Orion Fest.
Yeah.
They only did 2 shows. They did one in Atlantic City and one in Detroit, and they did 2 nights. They had a bunch of bands. They did the Black Album from beginning to end and Ride the Lightning from beginning to end. And they had a comedy stage, too. They had like 4 or 5 different stages where a bunch of bands, they had comedians. So I was picked to do, you know, I was a comic. Me and Don did it, too. So we, technically opened for Metallica. We went on during the day at like 4 o'clock. They went on at like 9 or whatever. But, they handpicked us to do the show, which is great. The metal show was on the air. Lars wound up introducing us on stage, which was cool. So.
Sure.
And then the Slayer tour was Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax back in 2010.
I was at that. You got me into the San Antonio. We sat in the box up high watching Slayer for a while.
I remember.
I think that was the first night of the tour, maybe.
That's a Jägermeister tour, I think.
Yeah, Jägermeister. Yeah. Jägermeister. So I was working for Jägermeister as the host and MC, and they had me do like 5 minutes in between each band. Giveaways to promote Jägermeister and tell some jokes, whatever. And then I think San Antonio might have been the first night because I remember they were throwing beers at me, like when I was at the soundboard.
Oh, shit.
Because I did the first set, like Anthrax, and the building's like, 4,000 people in there, 3,000. They were great for 5 minutes. I bring them on. Then I go on before Megadeth. That was a little rough. But then the last one, I have to go on right before Slayer. And they already saw me twice. And with Slayer, I remember they had a big stage. So the curtain was covering the whole stage because they had a huge stage thing. So I couldn't be on the main stage for my 3rd set. So they put me at the soundboard in the middle of the venue. And all of a sudden I get the mic, hello, I'm here. And they hit a spotlight on me. So everyone had to turn around. They think Slayer's coming on because it's like 5 to 9 or whatever. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey guys, I'm back over here by the soundboard. And now all the people in the front have to turn around like, you got to be this guy again? Enough with the fucking jokes. Who cares? But that's what I had to do. I remember I'm throwing beers. Like I see missiles coming at me as I'm talking because they're like pissed. I remember one blood splashed all over the soundboard. They were freaking out.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey man, this is where they put me. I can't help it. I remember the next night they were like put a tarp over it. They cleared all the families out. Get out of here. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Who booked this puppet show?
Jägermeister. Jägermeister, hired me for the tour.
Yeah, but the logistics of putting you at the soundboard where you're either going to piss people off, say something wrong right before Slayer. I mean, you had it all stacked against you.
Yeah, I didn't know. Like, we didn't know that the curtain was covering the whole stage. Like, no, he can't be on the stage. So right. And then they would move me around. Like certain venues, I'd be up in a skybox. and they put the spotlight on me. So it was just weird, the third one, because I couldn't be on that stage, but it was horrible. But it was good money, and I was like, you know what? That metal show it was on the air for a couple seasons, so like people are going to know me, which they did. But they, at some point, like, all right, dude, enough. Who cares?
I'd say it worked out.
I always have to tell them. I say, listen, I'm doing 5 minutes before Slayer. I go, I'm not taking any time away from Slayer, because I was always that drunk guy in the audience when the local DJ would come out and he'd start be babbling. Meanwhile, the local DJ never played Maiden or Priest, and he's out there like, get the fuck, you guys, you play Living After Midnight once?
Yeah,
right.
So I would be mad, because I'd be the drunk guy going, you're just babbling. I could hear another Ozzy song. Shut the fuck up. Bring them on. So I tell the crowd, listen, I got Slayer's coming on at 9 o'clock. It's 8:54 right now. I'm getting off at 8:59, and then they're coming on in a minute later. I go, so I'm not taking any time away from them. I go, if you don't want to hear a few jokes, go take a piss, go get a beer. I got to do my job. Here's 5 minutes. Fuck you. And just go out and do it.
See, you're keeping it real. You're a fan. You know
so
how to
I know.
roll.
I've been in that situation.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. Yeah, it's called Know Your Audience.
It was funny because I was just married at the time, and I just had a baby, and my wife was worried. She likes country music. She didn't know anything about metal, and she was worried. Oh, there's going to be girls all around, and these groupies. I go, it's not that crowd. She's like, I don't believe you. We just got married. We got a family at home. I go, I'm telling you, I'm not going to do anything. I go, it's not that crowd. And I remember we're doing a gig in Baltimore. It was like the third night of the tour, and she came down, because it was close to home, and she saw the crowd. She goes, yeah, I got nothing to worry about. She goes, you don't have to call me at the end of the night. I'm good. Because there was like 2 chicks in the crowd out of 15,000 people. So I'm good.
Yeah, and they were probably pretty scary.
I mean,
they were.
women love metal. Women love Slayer. Women love Anthem. They love it. But it's not that kind of a situation.
Nah,
especially a full show of that from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock, 4 hours of thrash. It's tough to take, even as a guy.
Yeah,
exactly. I can vouch for that. My son is 14 years old, and he's dragging me to every concert that comes through town, and right now his taste in music is pretty extreme. So he likes all the Sepulturas and the Power Trips and the all the stuff that is, the spawn of the big four, basically.
Yeah.
And so I want to take him to these gigs because I want him to experience what I experienced as a kid. But now I'm an old man, and, every bill has like 5 bands booked on it or whatever. And I'm like, Jesus, I can't take any more of this.
Right. And he knows, my nephew's like that. He knows every band, so he wants to get in there for the first band. Like, this sucks.
Right. And he wants to get the good position, and I'm trying to stay in the back, and all that stuff. And so it's kind of brutal, but at the same time you want him to enjoy that experience, because I know I enjoyed it when I was a kid.
Yeah, but now you want to bring a lawn chair and a football helmet.
Exactly. And I want to be home by 10 p.m.
Same.
Yeah.
So what's next for you, Jim? What are you currently working on?
No, I just put the Terrorizing Telemarketers Volume 7 just came out yesterday. #1 comedy album.
Wow! Congratulations.
#1 on iTunes. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, so it's still #1, so that's cool. And just doing a stand-up. Focusing on that. I put a comedy special out called "Bite the Bullet," which is one of my favorite Motorhead songs.
Yeah,
what album is that off? What album is that off? "Bite the Bullet."
That's Ace of Spades, isn't it?
Of course. Yeah, I knew you would know that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's out there. It's I put that. I was on YouTube for a while. Now it's like mycomedystore.com. You can watch it, rent it, and buy it there. All my stuff's on Amazon Prime except for this special. Amazon Prime actually rejected my comedy special because they said the title, "Bite the Bullet," is inciting violence.
Oh God. Here we go.
Swear to God. And it's just me like a character, and I'm holding a plate with a bullet on it, making a goofy face.
Yeah.
But "Bite the Bullet" is inciting violence, and they won't put it on.
Don't they know it's a dick joke? They don't know it's a dick joke?
No. I don't know if you watched on Amazon Prime. They have a show called Terminal List. It's the second most streamed show besides Stranger Things, where Chris Pratt just is like a modern day Charles Bronson, kills everyone.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's huge, the show. But "Bite the Bullet"
that's a
might incite violence.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's all in the title. They're afraid of anything with gun, rifle, pistol, ammo, bullet.
Meanwhile, like I wish, if I would have known, I would have called my special "The Chase is Better Than the Catch."
There you go. In keeping with the theme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But anyway, the comedy special. And I'm just out, working. Basically, I'm working on a new album, but we get to do it in front of a live audience.
Right.
Right on.
I just working on new material and just getting back out there and I love building a whole new set. It's almost like, a band just putting an album together. So it usually takes 2 years, 2.5 years. By year 3, you're ready to
as far as your title goes, you bite the bullet, can't use that. Shoot you in the back, can't use that either.
Fire, probably not, right?
Probably not. Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah.
Wow.
Jailbait, probably not.
Can't use that.
Right.
Yeah.
Love me like a reptile. I don't know. Maybe that's your gender shaming a reptile.
Yeah. Yeah,
that means you're love me like a reptile, so you're fucking a reptile, so they probably couldn't do that.
Yeah, there's an Australian saying like, we ain't here to fuck snakes. Well, obviously you can't fuck a snake. Right? Yeah. So
Ace of Spades is gambling. We don't want to do that because then people might have a gambling problem.
Well, and they also they think you're being racist too.
Yeah, there's that.
Right, Ace of Spades. Yeah,
it's fucking terrible. You can't even write a rock and roll song.
The hammer I can to close out the album because you might go around and hit someone with a hammer.
Yeah, and you don't want to
fast and loose. Maybe fast and loose, or is that considered like, are you calling does that mean a woman's loose and she's fast and loose, that she's a whore? So you're women shaming, so probably can't do that one either.
You got nothing left, man. How are you going to come up with a new album?
We are the road crew. They can't say anything about that.
That's true.
Oh, well, if you know road crews, you could.
Ouch.
Right, but I don't think anyone would be offended. Like they could go, okay, there's really nothing bad in the road crew. So
they don't know better.
Man, Lemmy had some good titles, good songs.
Great titles.
All of those could have been like these old cool Western movie titles,
Yeah.
Like Fistful of Dollars, that kind of style.
Yeah.
I remember when I first saw that Ace of Spades cover back to that import record store in Florida where I saw Rockin' Till You Drop, because Motorhead was going to go on the Ozzy Blizzard of Oz tour.
Yeah, they did.
They were doing. Yeah, so I was like, and then I was seeing them at some festival down in Florida. I saw Motorhead's first U.S. show, opening for Heart, Journey. I think maybe Bryan Adams. They went on at like noon and did like a half hour. Me and my brother were going. We go, let's go. We got to check this band Motorhead. And I remember seeing that import album behind the counter, and I'm like, are those guys Mexican?
Yeah,
like, Mexicans playing heavy metal. I go, wow, look at it, because they look Mexican on the cover.
Right.
I had no idea who they were or anything like that. I'm like, we got to get it because they're the opening band and they're going to play with Ozzy at some point. So, and when I heard it, I was like, man, masterpiece.
Come to think of it, when you see that album cover and you don't really know anything about heavy metal, let's say you just don't, right? You're clean cut or whatever, but you like outlaw country. You see that album cover and think, oh, I wonder if that's good country music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're Stetsons and Boleros, they just kind of look,
You know what got me into Motorhead too, when I first heard of them, is on the Saxon Wheels of Steel album on the back, 2 of the guys are wearing Motorhead shirts. I go, if they're wearing, what's that band, Motorhead? They must be good. Because I was a huge Saxon fan. I didn't even hear of Motorhead. So
they're wearing
on my radar.
They're wearing like Bomber or Overkill shirts.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny how that happens, because I could say the same thing about Metallica. I never knew who the Misfits were until I saw Metallica wearing Misfits T-shirts, and I was like, if it's good enough for Metallica, I probably need to check this out. And then I did, and I liked what I heard, but and they probably would have completely flown under my radar if it wasn't for Metallica wearing those shirts.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The the idea that I don't really like what flags represent, but when we're talking about, metalheads or hard rock fans and T-shirts that they're wearing, I always attest it to the first day of school. You don't know anybody, but you see that one kid wearing a Motorhead shirt, and you're like, my people.
Yeah.
I'm going to be friends with that guy, and you beeline, and the rest of the world does not exist until that person is like in your new clique, right?
Yeah.
In your new best friend. This is going to be my. Thank God there's someone who understands what the hell this brain is all about.
Yeah.
So metal is like that. There's no other fan like it in the world.
I always tell my kid, and I tell, like, when I see young kids at concerts, I go, you're gonna be a metalhead for life. I go, you might drift away a little bit, your late teens, early 20s, because you want to get laid and hook up with girls. You're at college and nobody wants to talk about Slayer, but you will go back to it. You'll always be a metalhead. And they do. Maybe it's in their 30s when they, but they'll always go back.
Yeah.
What do you think about, this is a good question, what do you think about people who say shit like, I used to like metal, but I don't anymore? What does that tell you?
They grew up.
I don't know. I don't really hear that. But if they do, they're pretending like, the whole stereotype was that metalheads are stupid.
Yeah.
We're dumb. We just smoke weed. We're unmotivated. And all we want to do is bang our head to this.
Which is not fucking
music.
true at all. It's not
true at all.
Naturally motivated, probably book smart, and probably you think the guys in Cannibal Corpse go home and just like drink Budweiser until they pass out? No, they probably put on jazz and read a book.
Yeah, exactly. But that was always the stereotype. So then I think when people get older, they go, you know what, I was immature to like Judas Priest. I can't like that anymore. I'm in my mid 30s now. I have to grow up. That's so that, all of a sudden they're thinking like that. So, but no, and meanwhile, when they're 50, they're like, oh man, I miss going to those shows. And you bring them to a show, they go, I go, yeah, they've been playing it. They tour every year. You've been missing it because you thought you have to grow up. You don't have to grow up. I'm making prank calls in my mid 50s still. Who says you have to grow up? You don't have to. I still laugh at the same thing. I do the same exact shit I did when I was 20. I still think farts are funny. I still fucking listen to metal. I still make prank calls.
Well, farts are funny.
They're never not.
Right. They're always going to be funny.
Yeah. Especially when you can annoy other people when you're doing it. It's great.
Well, and it's natural too. It's like, and you can even do it. You should be able to like do it at work. You should be able to do it in the library. You should be able to just kind of let it go because it adds levity. It's real. It's like, what? You're not a human being, turn around and read your fucking book,
Yeah.
That makes it funny, I think, that people are so easily annoyed by something like that. Anyway, the idea that someone would say, back to this, I used to like metal. It's very strange to my brain because why are they telling me this? For one, it's because it confuses me. It's like, it makes me think like, oh, so when you were young and impressionable, you said you liked heavy metal, and you still call AC/DC a heavy metal band. That's their version of metal, right? I used to like metal. Yeah, I used to like AC/DC and metal. Is this, you were saying you were into metal so you could have friends. You weren't really into it. You were saying it so you could belong to something. And I think that there's a legitimate side of something that they're saying underlying there is, like I was saying earlier, metal fans, you see someone 100 yards away wearing a Motorhead shirt, that's your people. You're going to be able to talk to them because that is an icebreaker. It's a real thing. It's completely tangible. I mean, unless it's a Kardashian and they don't know anything about the shirt they're wearing. And that, that's fine too. Anyone should be able to wear whatever clothing they want, but that would be a bummer if you walk up and someone, oh, this? Yeah, I just borrowed it. I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah, I always give people a pass because I went out of metal for like 2 or 3 years because I needed to get laid. It was like 19, 20, and I would go to parties and I'd be like, go up to hot girls and go, why would Judas Priest put Point of Entry out after British Steel? Like, why would they follow up with that album? And the girl's like, what the fuck are you talking? Get away from me, you weirdo. And then I realized I need to go, like, that was when New Wave was in. I'm like, I'm just going to start listening to that. I got to go to dance. I wanted to get pussy. And I knew, fucking, knowing Rob Halford's birthday and where he was born, that it wasn't going to press a girl. Right. So I moved away from it for a few years. I came back, but I did for a little while. I had to. I turned my back on it. I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that.
You put a tarp over it for a minute.
I did. I did.
Yeah, you were feeling a little turgid. So you had to get a.
Yeah, I just knew that none of that stuff was on anybody's radar, and that's all I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I had nothing else.
Well, let's put
think
that
we've
up
all been in
to
those shoes. Yeah.
chalk that up to hormones. Lying
Yeah,
to
absolutely. It was definitely hormones. Yeah, I was backed up.
turgid.
Tell us about
bad plumbing.
Tell us about your experience on the set of the Danko Jones video. Aren't you the bus driver in the
Code of the Road?
Code of the Road, yeah. So how did that come about, and what was that experience like? Because I feel like I hear quite often that there's a lot of hurry up and wait on the set of a video. So walk us through your
I don't know. I was friends with Danko, and then all of a sudden I was up in Toronto doing a show. I was there for like 2 or 3 days. He goes, "Hey, man, if you come in the day before, we're filming a video. I'll put you in it." I go, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, man," because it was right in Toronto where I was performing. It wasn't that far away. So I wound up changing my flight. I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Don't worry, we'll figure something out. Maybe we played a bus driver or something. I don't know, whatever." And he said, "Just show up." I got a call, took a taxi there or whatever. They did it in a big warehouse. And he's like, "Yeah, we'll figure out a part for you if you could show up." And so they had me be the bus driver. I was only there for like 3-4 hours. It wasn't that long.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how long those guys were, but my stuff they were moving pretty quick. But yeah, so it just happened to be where I was in that town at that time.
Wow.
What about on the set of Trainwreck, the Amy Schumer movie?
Well, I was only there for maybe 4 or 5 hours because I only had like one scene coming in a room. They shot it a bunch of different times. I was over pretty quick.
I'm not dogging you out, but if you blink, you miss your part. Yeah.
I had a bigger part, and they showed it in like film festivals.
Oh.
Someone saw it, but they had to cut like 20 more minutes out of the movie.
Damn it.
The theme was Judd Apatow directed it, and he knew me. He had a lot of comedians in it. I was friends with Amy, and he's like, "All right, listen, this is the scene." He goes, "Amy's, in all these one-night stands, and basically she's going to throw you out. You're going to have a one-night stand with Amy, and she's going to throw you out. So just come up with a scenario why she would throw you out." And he wanted comics to ad-lib. So my ad-lib was, I go, "We just finished having sex." And she's like, "Okay, I'll see you. Nice meeting you." I go, how much do I owe you?
Yeah.
And she's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "How much?" She's like, "What are you talking about?" I go, "You're a hooker." She's like, "You think I'm a hooker?" I go, Yeah. She's like, "Why would you think that?" I go, "Because I got you out of the bar in like 5 minutes. You have to be." And she's like, "Just go. All right, sorry, I'm out." And they only just showed, "Okay, sorry, I'm out," and that was it. They cut those lines. But I saw people that saw it in the film festival.
Oh,
it's like, "Oh man, that's really funny when you call her a hooker," but I guess they cut that.
Yeah, I never saw the.
They didn't do that, but I got in the movie. It was made like 160 million. I still get checks, residual checks.
That's
here
amazing.
And there, so,
that's amazing. Yeah, it's a good cameo. And you've made some other feature films that maybe weren't blockbusters, but give us a list. You got a few things.
Well, I was in Californication, that show on Showtime. I played a pimp. I played a pimp wearing a Metallica shirt.
Nice.
The creator of Californication was a big metalhead. If you watch the series, there was always Marilyn Manson was in it. Zach Wild was in it. There was always Slayer references, and he knew me from that metal show. And I was out in L.A. and I met with him. He's like, "I'm going to write you in a part." I go, "Yeah, I would love it." So I was on the set for like 4 days. Because those big scenes I was in like the whole episode. So that was like along just hanging around and shit. But he said, "No, I don't want you to dress like a stereotypical pimp. Just wear like a concert T-shirt, like a Metallica shirt, like you always do, and that you'll be a pimp." I'm like, "Oh, perfect."
Easy.
Yeah.
Man,
I didn't know that. And didn't you make a? I don't know her name. Didn't you make a
porno?
No. I don't.
Not yet.
No, I don't. I want to be careful about how I react now. No, I'm sorry. I don't recall the actor's name. She played Pam Beasley in The Office.
Yeah, Jenna Fisher.
Jenna Fisher. Yeah.
A movie called A Little Help.
Okay, yeah.
It's an independent film. It's out there. It's a pretty good film, actually.
Yeah, I see it. I think it's on Amazon or something.
Yeah.
And you have a full role in that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, the director knew me from that metal show too, I think, or my comedy or whatever. And he goes, "Listen, I wrote this part, and I just thought of you. That you're going to play this role." And he got in contact with me, and basically, it's like some jerk that she has a one-night stand with. that's just mean to her. And then she realizes I got to go back with my boyfriend. So it's a pivotal point in the movie. So I just had to be a jerk. Like I meet her, hey, why don't you call me? And she's like, you know what, I'm going to call this jerk. You know, because she just broke up with him. He's like, I need a guy that's just going to be like wild. And she calls me, and then I'm just like rude to her, you know. And we have a one night stand. I had to dry hump her for like 6 hours. It was beautiful.
Wow.
Because it's a sex scene that we had, and then I was just rude to her afterwards.
Well, I don't want to get down to nitty gritty. Wait, yes, I do. Did you have to wear some kind of like cock blocker?
I had like a little G-string on because they were going to show my ass. They weren't sure if they're going to show my ass, so it was like a super small G-string. But the problem was my balls were hanging out of it. Because in the front, they weren't going to show the front, but it was really small and thin, like it went in my ass crack. So in case they get an ass shot of me on top of her. But my balls, I got big balls, so they were hanging out like the sides. And then I would get an erection because I'm grinding on her, basically. You know,
that's
like, just keep going.
I don't want to talk about your erection. I want to talk about, were they laying down some kind of like cock blocker so you're not actually rubbing up against? No,
but she had like it was like on her leg. We had a position where it was like, you know, on her thigh, like by her knee. Okay. And she had like a dress on, so it was like rubbing on that. So it wasn't actually.
Right.
Yeah.
But
so it was like there, but you know, we just kept doing it and moaning and stuff. And so I would get up like, sorry, like, okay, cut. I'm like, sorry. She's like, no, that's fine. She goes, I'd be offended if you didn't. I'm like, okay, cool.
Right. Awkward and funny and a good sport. Well, she's a comedic actress anyway. So
she was great.
She
was
funny
awesome.
as shit. So
yeah, she was really cool to work with too.
I see her in a lot of stuff now. That might tell everybody what kind of movies I watch, but she's in a lot. She's in a lot of stuff. I'll go, oh yeah, you know, shit that like where she plays a mad mom or something. Some of it might be old, like from late '90s or
because I haven't, you know, I don't know. I haven't seen her doing too much stuff. I know she does a pretty popular podcast. She's married with a couple kids now. Oh, good for her. So I don't know. She's from St. Louis. She's from Midwest. Just a nice Midwest girl, you know. Yeah. So she was really cool. Yeah. I think she might even still live there. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to bring her up because I know you were in a feature film with her. And, What else have you done theater-wise?
I don't know. I mean, you know, Amy Schumer's TV show I was on. I did a bunch of episodes on the sketch show on Comedy Central. I was in like 4 or 5 sketches. I did an episode of Louis C.K.'s show, Louis, that was on FX.
Oh, right. I think I saw you on that.
Yeah, I did an episode of that, too. So, yeah, I've got little things here and there.
So do you have an agent that hooks you up with that stuff, or do you get actual calls? Like you said, it seemed to be your answers about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, because Louis knew me as a comic, and Louis like, I got a perfect role for you. Yeah, so it usually happens like that. Sometimes you have to audition for the stuff, you know, and get it. But usually it's just a meeting and like, okay, you're going to be perfect for this.
But it sounds like it's not necessarily an agent. It's like somebody going, I got a guy. I'll just call Jim.
You know it's the same as the music business. 90% of the stuff you're going to get is on your own.
Yep.
Yeah. And the agent gets you the other 10%. It's the same thing in comedy. I always tell people, this girl I was talking to last night, this comic, she's new and she's going to sign with management. I go, just know 90% of the stuff you're going to get on your own. The managers love to, managers and agents love to collect you like baseball cards just so you're on their roster. Yeah. And you're like, I was doing this myself. Why do I need it? He's not even doing anything for us. You know, he's lazy. I could do this shit. So you think it's always going to get to the next level, and rarely does it happen.
Right. Well, as long as it's non-exclusive. You know, if they're handing out business cards or naming a roster on their website or whatever, however it's fucking done these days, who fucking knows? Just having your name up there, that's great. And it's probably giving you a little bit of lip service and stuff like that. And another way someone can contact you. But just like in any entertainment business, you know, having your name out there for your brand or whatever is actually really good. But as long as you told her, this young artist, go for non-exclusive.
Well, I also told her to try not to sign a deal because a lot of time it's just handshake deals with management and comedy. And then also if you're going to, no more than 2 years because 2 years will go by quick. I go 2 years is going to go by super quick. And then you're out of the contract if it doesn't go well. And I said, and any money you're making right now, they can't have a cut of it.
Yeah.
Like she has a podcast she makes good money on. She also does a Twitch show on Twitch TV or whatever.
Yeah.
So I said, this guy can't come in your life and go, I need a cut of that. He had nothing to do with that. So just tell him no on that too.
Right. Whatever they're going to book, they're going to get their...
Whatever you book, whatever you get me, I'll give you a cut on. But
what do you think an agent takes these days? 30%? 10?
No, 10 or 15, but usually 10. Yeah.
So I know you and Don and Eddie are probably sick of answering this question, and so I'll try to put a spin on it. You get a lot of...
Is that metal show ever going to come back? I already know where you're going. No, it's not. No, we don't own it. We don't own it. No actors own their own show. We can't just go to Netflix and go, hey, us three are here. VH1 owns the show. They can do what they want with it. Netflix can say, I'll give you $5 million for the rights to the show, and they can go, no, and that's it. We could always do another rock show if we wanted that rock show, but we also it's going to cost $100,000 to do an episode. So unless someone comes up at $100,000, we do 10 episodes, $1 million. It has no shot. We can't do a podcast. We can't do a Zoom show. It needs to look professional, like the old metal show. You got to pay 5 cameramen, union, whatever. You got to fly the guy in first class with his wife, put him up in a 5-star hotel, transportation, back and forth, post-production. Shooting a TV show is a lot, the sound mix, all of that stuff. So it's $100,000 an episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, right.
And that's cheap, and that's super cheap. We used to do, I don't know what it was. It was probably like 150 at the day. You could probably shoot it for 100, but people think it's like, no, just get Rob Zombie. Go, well, is Rob Zombie going to fly to fucking New Jersey on his dime? No, you give him a first class air ticket with his wife. There's fucking, there's $7,000 right there. 5-star hotel in New York City for 2 nights. That's $9,000. Car service there back to the airport, and that's what you do on a TV show. That's what So that's $10,000 right there. Who's paying for that?
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. So look, if comedy Crank Yankers came back, I was on the show on Comedy Central. It was on from 2002 to 2006, making prank calls, and in 2018 it came back after 12 years. So you never know.
Yeah.
A lot of retro shit's coming back. So
are you still doing Crank Anchors now? Is it current?
Yeah, it's back. So we're in the 3rd season of the coming back. So
I thought I heard about that, but I don't watch.
Yeah, it's on nobody's radar. Nobody's watching it, but it's still back and whatever.
That's good. That's good.
Maybe that metal show. Who knows? In 2 years, some network or maybe VH1 goes, hey, we want to put that back on the air. Okay, great. But until then, there's nothing we can do.
It's gonna have to be someone with deep pockets, obviously.
And then who knows? Like we can't, even if it's a guy that gives us $1 million for 10 episodes, he can go, yeah, I got an in at Netflix. Netflix will go, no, we don't want this. No one knows. We have Beyonce documentaries on here. This is worldwide. We can't have the sleazebees on as your B guest. Like who's going to tune in for that? Nothing against that band, but who's going to tune in for that? And I get where they're coming from. So yeah, you could tell Hulu. How about Hulu? How about Amazon Prime? They didn't take my special because they'll bite the bullet. So they're not just all of a sudden, okay, yeah, you shot something, all right, we're going to put it on here. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work to the possibility of getting shot down or like 99.9%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but if some network at FX one day goes, hey, we want to do that metal show. All right, we're in.
It also sounds like with the numbers that you're kind of mentioning here, it sounds to me like and this is just how my brain works. It sounds to me like if someone was going to put up that kind of talk that kind of numbers, that it would almost be like, shit, it should be a movie with that $1 million budget for that many episodes. It should almost be a movie about, well, if it was going to be about 3 metalheads from Jersey who are, from 3 different parts of Jersey meeting and creating this da-da-da-da-da-da. It could be like a Beavis and Butthead on the road kind of, do America kind of a scenario. It would almost be worth it to do that.
The problem is we can't act.
I don't even feel like you have. Who would play you?
I'd play myself. We'd all play ourselves, and we can't really act. So that's
right.
Let me ask you one more.
Well, how about it? Since it'd be you, you wouldn't really be acting.
I know the camera's on, so I'd probably be playing to the camera. Yeah.
Let me ask you one more that metal show question. While the show was on the air, did you have any guests that you were pursuing that you just couldn't get to save your life? Like, was there anybody on your wish list? And I don't mean like, Paul McCartney or something. Was there somebody that you actually were engaged with either through their manager or whatever, and you were trying and trying and trying, and it just never worked out, and you were bummed out about not?
I know I didn't book the guests, it was Eddie and the booker there or whatever, so I really wasn't on those decisions. I know that Jimmy Page wouldn't do the show because he didn't want to be associated with metal, because it was called That Metal Show. His management, I don't know if it came directly from Jimmy or not, but he's like, he's not going to go on a show. He's not heavy metal. Like, it's not, we have had, because we had like Paul Rogers on and Ann Wilson and Nancy from Heart. So we're trying to explain to him it's not just metal guys, but he wouldn't come on just because of the name of the show. I don't know. Like I said, it's probably from his manager, but that was one we would love to have.
Yeah,
sure.
What's the story with Kiss? Why is there so much such a big problem between Eddie and Gene and Paul?
I don't know. They had some kind of falling out. Eddie doesn't like that. Tommy and who's the other guy?
Eric.
The other guy. Eric. Are in the Aces and Peter's costumes. Yeah. Same makeup. So he goes off about that, and that probably pisses Gene and Paul off, I think. Yeah. So. He's relentless with that stuff, and he's friends with Peter and Ace, so who knows? Yeah. But yeah, that's where it started. So they would never come on. Yeah. From that, which is fine. And Gene's done my show on Sirius XM. Me and Gene are fine. He knows. Like I don't care. That's not my fight over that stuff. That doesn't really bother me.
Yeah. What was he like? What was it like having him on your show?
Yeah.
I just, he was great because he's always sarcastic and dry, and I'm like that too. So he's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. I've interviewed him a couple times over the phone, and he's one of my childhood heroes. So of course you're just sort of in awe from that angle. But one time he was better than the other, and I remember the second interview was much better than the first. But he was very a little more open and kind of dry, and his sense of humor kind of came through. And that's cool. Did you have him in your studio, or was it sort of a?
It was at Sirius XM. He was up there, so we just did it in one of their studios in New York City because I do a show in Ozzy's Boneyard. So, a show so he co-hosted with me. I think he's done it twice. So whenever he's up there, I'll go in and we'll get some studio space and just knock it out real quick.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. Well, man, you're living the dream. I'll say that. Not bad for a guy who, thought that fart jokes and crank calling the neighbor's daughter was.
I still do.
You still call her?
I still think it's funny.
Yeah. It'd be funny if you still called her.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah,
I should look her up. I remember her name too.
You would know that voice too. Is this Janet?
I know. Her tits got to be bigger now. She got older. They probably filled out even more. She had a couple of kids, so they're probably double Ds.
Jesus. Man, we might.
Is that wrong?
We should probably quit while we're ahead.
Well, it was good to see you on Monsters of the Mountain. And once again, if I haven't alluded to this, I think that the Monsters, the company Monsters of Rock Cruise and Larry and his whole crew, Larry Moran, of course, have kind of saved rock and roll with this little niche of like by land and sea. He has created this entire culture of and there's even some new-ish bands. It's not just all this retro, hey, let's wheelchair some old rocker, 80s rocker guy up there who's about to die of an cocaine overdose singing songs from 1981. There's a little bit of that, but everyone's in pretty good shape and kind of killing it. And to have, you and Don and Eddie, because of the culture you guys are obviously part of and everything, I just want to say that it's great to have all of this, connection where it kind of goes back to what I was saying. It's like tribal, the flags, the T-shirts, just metal fans are different than any other kind of music fan. And it's just been great to be able to run into you and Don and Eddie, just who are just the mouthpieces for a generation kind of thing. Not to put any pressure, but just to be part of the whole scene, the whole heavy metal movement, which obviously is never going to die. So it seems like we're all going to just kind of hang in there. It's kind of going to be legendary one day.
Yeah, no, it's great, man. He's definitely helping these
it
bands
already,
out. And
I think it already is in some respects. I mean, people continue to talk about that metal show, and I just, this is I've never had this opportunity to speak to you before, so I just want to thank you for doing that metal show, because it came out and it served a need that I thought would never be served. And I loved the fact that I could turn on my television and three knowledgeable dudes that knew something about rock and roll were interviewing Tracy Guns or something. And I never thought that would happen. And you made it last for a number of seasons. It was very successful. That proves there's an audience out there for it. And so I just want to thank you for bringing that and making it a reality, because there's a lot of people like me and people that listen to the show that really appreciated it and miss it dearly.
yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, it's people nerding out about this are just kind of like, also, I mean, because that's why we have a podcast, is so we can just nerd out. Our first 20 episodes of this podcast here, we didn't have any guests. It was just me and Dave just hanging out talking about Iron Maiden and shit.
Right.
And people loved it. So, and then all of a sudden we started having our friends on, and then we had people knocking on the door. It just goes to show that kind of, everybody is saving rock and roll just because of their love for it. So it's never going to go away because of the heart that's involved. So,
no, you're right.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Yeah. Hey, man, thanks for hanging with us today.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always great. I love you, Jason.
Absolutely.
Cool, man. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
It's been a real
nice
pleasure.
To meet you, Dave. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah, and Terrorizing Telemarketers, Volume 7. If you're into prank calls, me and Don Jameson torturing telemarketers, wherever you listen to music, it's out there now. So, check it out. That's the 7th volume. We have 6 other ones. So you go back and listen to our history of it.
And number 1 on iTunes.
Yeah, number 1. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Congratulations.
What about Meet the Creeps? Is that happening or not?
Maybe. There's some talks that maybe we'll revisit it and start it back up again. So it's possible, like a hidden camera series. So, we got things in the works. We're figuring it out. So.
Sure.
Well, Jim, thank you for being with us today. It was nice meeting you as well. And thank you for flying the flag of metal in everything that you do, whether it's wearing a Metallica shirt on television or telling your
broken
jokes.
teeth.
Or broken teeth, yes, exactly. And I hope one of your comedy tours brings you through Austin, Texas.
I know. I haven't been there in a while. I'm dying to get back there, so I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of the time the closest you get is like Dallas or Houston.
Yeah, I'm doing Fort Worth in November, so it's just it's tough getting down that way. I was in Houston last year, but I got to get to Austin definitely.
Yeah, and San Antonio too.
San Antonio. Yeah,
strong metal following in San Antonio.
Yeah.
So hopefully your routing brings you our way. I would love to see your act in person. In the meantime, thank you so much for being on our show today. On behalf of my co-host Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our very special guest Jim Florentine on the Talk Louder podcast today.